What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. How's that bite? I'm Miguel Malenciano, and this is Evolution Angler Bassin. And today, I'm a little riled up because we're going to be talking about that fall top water bite. Things are in full swing, full motion, full flip them in the boat status. And I got some fun toys, some goodies lined up for you today. So I mean, let's just do what we do best and jump right into the action. So first, there is not a hotter bait out on the market right now in terms of top water anyway to talk to you about, other than that Evergreen Shower Blows 77.7 top water walking bait. Take this out of the package for you. So I actually got this in the color I wanted, and trust me, the bait was hard enough to get it on its own, but by some miracle of God, we got it. All right, so this is gonna be a JDM. At the moment, JDM, but trust me, it's making its wave over here. It's gonna be common. By next spring, you should be able to get one anywhere, anytime. So the length on this bait is actually gonna be 77.7 millimeters. That's why it's called 77.7. Or more commonly around here, 3 inches. The color is gonna be natural gill, and you know, match the hatch could not be more important at this time. This bait imitates a little bit of everything. It's gonna have a little bit of bluegill in it. It's gonna have a little bit of perch. It's gonna have a little bit of golden shiner in it as well. So I went ahead with the deal. This was the color that, luckily enough, was around when I was in the market for. It's gonna weigh 11/32 of an ounce, so basically about 1/3 of an ounce. This bait is gonna be produced by Marizo Shimizu. You may have heard that name on this channel before, and that's because when I was talking about chatterbaits, the chatterbait, the jackhammer, was one of those baits produced by this same guy, professional angler Marizo Shimizu, along with Brett Height. There's just another bait that he's involved with. So the bait itself, from the homework I've done, it spits, it chugs, it walks, and it pops. It does a little bit of everything, just really solidly well, which I'm finding that the better baits that I come across do that. Just a little bit of everything, but really solidly well. For its size, 3 inches, has amazing castability. Casts this a mile. Not so much in the wind per se, but that goes for any bait, right? The stronger the wind, the less castability you have. It does have a built-in tungsten weighted transfer system. Has a unique sound. I wouldn't say it's the loudest, wouldn't say it's the subtlest, I would say somewhere in the middle, but it is different from everything I've heard. Could be the components, could be the way everything is pieced together gives it that sound, but it's like on the door of being loud, but not necessarily loud yet. It does have a rear feathered hook, nicely feathered as well. Do see little strands of tinsel in there as well. So nice job on that rear hook. It is gonna have 2 hooks, one in the back, one on the belly. This bait also does come available in the 105 version, in the 125 version, and I wanna say in the 150 as well. 99.9% sure it was a 150, not a 130. It does have outstanding surface action, so you can get as erratic as you want with it, or as subtle as you want, you know. Somewhere in between is probably going to be the right combination. And it is going to have a number 7 treble hook on the front with a number 6 on the back. So the gear to use on this SB 77.7. So I'm going to use a medium moderate action rod, a cranking setup if you have that preferably. I'm going to use 10 to 12 pound monofilament. No need for braided mainline on this. Remember, you're relying on the stretch of the line and the give of the rod. I'd use anywhere from 5 to a 7-speed reel for this, depending on how you're looking to retrieve. That seems to be pretty moderately paced, and however, if you're going to be on the slower end, then use a 5. If you know that you're going to be on the faster end, then use a 7. I personally prefer a 7 because I could just slow down manually. And speed may be a factor right now because remember, you're imitating small bait fish right now. You know, this is a good profile size to imitate that small bait fish in a hot bait at the moment, which they haven't really seen or heard much of. So, you know, to keep things on the faster end, I'd probably go with a 7 right now. Where and when? So traditionally, low light conditions for bait like this, but because it's the fall and because they're chasing so much, you know, it's really hard to tell that top water bite in the fall. It could be really turned on in terms of just random days overall. So you can throw those rules out the window for the fall while still keeping them in the back of your mind, just know that traditionally a low light condition, like a lay down in the shade, it's gonna be better and maybe a high percentage spot, but it's not to say that in the middle of the sun on a random day in the fall, open water won't get you a bite as well. It's just too random. You could tell by testing out the waters. Open water, but look for shallow open water, especially this time of the year. Look for the back of bays, coves, and creeks. And the same way you'd work a buzzbait by swinging around in a U fashion, do the same thing with this. And look for those high percentage areas that I just mentioned first. If you have a lay down with shade on it in that cove as you're working your way around, keep in mind that that's going to be your high percentage spot. Pay a little bit more attention to that spot. Bam. And yeah, that's going to do it for the Evergreen Shower Blow 77.7. Hot bait at the moment. Next. So you cannot talk about walking baits without talking about a Headon Spook. I had to include this as a classic. This is the standard for walking baits, in my opinion anyway. I have a feeling that most of America feels the same way. And this is going to be the Headon Chug and Spook version, the Junior. So it's going to be 3.5 inches and the color is going to be bone. This may be the greatest topwater walking lure of all time. I'll give you a little close up here. You know, nothing crazy. It's just regular old walking bait. It's definitely a must-have in the arsenal. It has withstood the test of time. Comes with number 6 hooks on it. It does have that cup mouth. It does have the realistic eyes. Has a little bit of red here on the gills. You know, just nothing crazy. Again, just a solidly built lure. And this lure right here, for the amount of decades, we're talking 5, 6, 7, 8 decades it's been around, something like that. I don't even know. I just know it's an old lure. For it to be around that long and still be effective says something. So I had to include it. I feel like it should be in your arsenal. It should be in my arsenal. It is in my arsenal. So the gear, same deal. Medium, moderate bait casting rod. If you have a cranking setup, preferably the cranking setup, 10 to 12 pound mono, and a 5 to 7 speed reel. The where and the when, it's also going to be the exact same. We're talking about the same style lure, except this specific one in this specific color, not necessarily the color, even if it was another bright color, same deal, but I would apply this more in shallow, dirtier water situations. I feel like it just produces a lot more noise. That one knock and thud calls a little bit more attention, and you could apply it in places where you necessarily wouldn't think a topwater would call out to a fish. You just call them in with this. So the Headon Chug and Spook Junior. Alright, and now I've been looking forward to this. I've been holding one of these for a while and I just got the other one in on back order. We're gonna have the PH Custom Lures front runners, and I got 2 of these. First one I was able to get was plain old black one, and I held off for the sexy shad because there we go. Look at that shad, man. That's sexy. Now take it out of the package, give you a better look. But these things are unique, and they're not the first of its kind, and circle back to that later, but man, for a small batch lure company, these things are fire. And PH Custom Lures, they can be found on Tackle Warehouse, but as I just said, you know, a little bit smaller batch, a little bit more attention to detail. So these were developed by designer Phil Hunt, no name, especially if you're into lures. And these are unique. You're probably wondering, well, how do you toss it? It only has 1 hook, but it has 2 line ties. Well, the reason for that is because this is gonna be a lead lure. You're gonna tie this on a small monofilament leader anywhere from 12 to 18 inches in front of your walking bait. So essentially you're gonna have this right here, and as you're twitching, as you're hitting that 1, 2, they're gonna be zigzagging. As the lead one is going right, the one in the back is going left, and you have that kind of motion. Looks like predator chasing prey, just zigzagging. So anyone that's all-time fisherman knows about the Norman front runner. This just remake, a revamp of that. Shout out to the bait man for the little education there. By the way, go check out Baitman's channel. Good channel if you're into lures. Definitely worth checking out. So this is so special, not only because it presents an action that the fish aren't really seeing. Remember that zigzag in action. It allows for the opportunity, especially if you hit one of those hot action schools that's just beating up on shad, for you to catch multiple fish at once. That's an opportunity that rarely ever presents itself. But yeah, it just makes it a little bit easier for that purpose if you're really trying to hammer them that day. So the gear to use, the gear is going to be the same as the prior two I just mentioned. Same rod, the same line, everything. But with this, like I said, you're going to tie a leader to the back line tie. Then the back line tie, that's where you're going to have your lure. Now the front line tie, that's where you're going to have your main line. So let's talk about the leader for a second. Strategically, you're going to want that leader to be a little bit shy, a little bit less stronger, just a little bit weaker than your actual main line. So if you have 10 to 12, I'd have anywhere from 8 to 10 as your leader. So if you do break off, you're not breaking off 2 lures, you're breaking off 1. At least you can still keep your front runner and just tie on another walking bait, order another, the same one you may have just lost. This, 2 situations, open water or shallow open water. Preferably if I had the option of 2. I'm still gonna work it the same way as the walking bait, making that U-shaped troll around the back of a cove or the back of a bay. But I'm really gonna focus in on cover. If I find cover, even if it's not shaded, I'm gonna really work this as much in place as possible around that cover. Also, even more important than that, and I should have let off with this, if you find, this is just like sight fishing, it's hard to do, but if you can get on or find bass beating up on a school actively chasing them in open water, then you're going to want to stick to that and stick to them, on top of them as long as possible. Cast after cast after cast. This is something that will ignite a school, trust me. This is going to spark them up hardcore and heavy. From the old fishing heads I've talked to, more than one of them separately have indicated that if you find a school, stay on that school and stay tossing it, because you're going to get more than one, you're going to get multiple bigs. So yeah, that is what I have for you today in terms of the PH front runner. Alright, so next we are going to have another fall legend, another playoff hero, your buzzbait. And this one in specific is going to be your greenfish tackle, TOTER buzz tackle. And they're very specific on the wordplay here. Also on TW, I wasn't able to find this under buzzbaits. I was able to find it under tackle in terms of greenfish section, terminal tackle. I wonder if it's just because it comes a little different, but I specifically got this through word of mouth. The grapevine told me if I'm going to check out buzzbaits, check this one out. The sound, it's somewhere in between subtle and loud, and it does come with the clacker. Also, another thing that attracted this buzzbait to me, I just ripped the skirt off. It came skirtless as is, so I was like, hey, that's a, that's a plus. But yeah, fall and buzzbaits are synonymous with big fish. It does have a nice inline keeper that helps hold your bait nice and straight, as you can see. And also it does come in 4 colors. Also, the size wasn't mentioned, but again, it does have 4 color options. Black, gold, silver, I believe white as well. I got this in the gold, as you can see there. So the gear to use for this greenfish tackle buzzbait, anywhere from a 7 foot to 7.5 foot, heavy, fast action. If you got flipping rod, or extra fast action rod, straight up on your 65-pound braid. Some of you might say, wow, that's overkill. No, it's not overkill, because if you fish shallow, if you have a lot of weedy situations, a lot of weedy deals around you, then that vegetation necessarily hasn't fallen back yet. And I'm not saying that this is a frog by any means, but with this bait, you have the ability to toss this back there, either A, on the bank, or B, into a lot of junk that you may have at this time of the year remaining. You could toss it deep into pads and work it through the pads. Now the deal is, if you catch a fish, you're gonna wanna have that heavy line to get him out of there, especially if you give him a second to ingest that, go down. He may go down into the pads, ergo your 65-pound braid. So just go with 65-pound braid still, you know. It's likely you may need it. And then the reel, I'm not gonna tell you 7 or 8 or 9, just the fastest reel that you have or that you could afford. I wouldn't tell you go out and buy a reel just for a couple weeks of tossing a buzzbait, but if you're in the market for a fast reel, you don't have one yet, just look for the fastest one that you can get within price range. Don't put one on credit either, I'd never suggest that. Just the fastest reel that you can. If you have an 8 or a 9, do an 8 or a 9. Remember, you want to cover water with a buzzbait, and you want to cover water fast with a buzzbait. So I guess that takes me into the when and where, covering water fast. But remember what I said before about the U-shaped fashion trolling around the cove. That's definitely something to do, because remember, they're attacking fish and pushing them into the backs of the coves right now. So I would do that in U-shaped fashion around the back of a cove, headed into the back of a creek. Start at the mouth of the creek. I always like to start from right to left, just something about me. But traditionally, if you start from the shaded side to the not shaded side, that's preferably going to be ideal in this situation. Also, let's talk about trailers. So just went through that whole spiel without even mentioning this trailer. There's going to be a 6 cents Divine swim bait this time of the year. I know traditionally you toss a toad on the back of a buzzbait, but for this time of the year in the fall, start with your smaller to mid-size swim baits. This in specific, there's going to be a 6 cents Divine swim bait in the Screaming Shad color. There's a 4.4. I like this specific size because you can't really see it there, but the head of the keeper comes to about 1 millimeter or 2 off from the head of the swim bait, and look at that, just hugs the whole package perfectly, just makes it come together. Remember, they're chasing right now. You got a little shad color underneath, you got some golden shiner on top. The most important key to this whole deal is match the hatch. I told you were gonna hear that a lot from me. Match the hatch, match the hatch, match the hatch. Golden shiner. If you got bluegill in your lake, do bluegill. If you got threadfin shad in your lake, look for something that resembles threadfin shad. This isn't really too far off from threadfin shad either. But yeah, match the hatch. Then the other trailer I got, and I like these in specific, that's why I wanted to show them to you. If you're gonna toss a toad trailer, I suggest going with the Gambler Buzzin cane toad. They're just a little bit more elongated, they're just a little bit more streamlined, and they're just a little bit more ready to receive whatever keeper you have in the package. Plus, you're gonna have that Gambler garlic scent. Can you smell that through the camera? I'm pretty sure you can. Super strong, added feature, especially in dirty water. This is the Green Pumpkin Red Swirl. That's what it is. You can see the specks of red on there. It's not necessarily a swirl of red. It has more of a pearl swirl on it, but it has the specks of red on it. Definitely must have if you're a buzzbait fisherman. Oh, also one last thing with the buzzbait. Don't be afraid to get super aggressive. I mean super aggressive with the buzzbait. This is probably the most aggressive bait that you could use in your arsenal. Bank it, not right into a bush, but into the base of a bush, into a tree line, somewhere where you can get it out, just straight up, super shallow. You want to cover, if you can, laterally those first 6 inches to that first foot of water line. You might catch you a super big one doing that. Just get super aggressive in pads and whatever cover you have and work it out of there pretty fast. All right, so the next bait, and this is gonna be more of a cleanup bait, and I can't do a what's in the box without finesse. I'm just super addicted to finesse. You're gonna have your 6 cents clout worm, and this is gonna be the 5.4 cinnamon crave color. Let me get one out of the package so you can see. So these are gonna come in a 10 count. And you know, pretty simple. I use this in combination with, by the way, if you can check these out, these are the Trapper tackle hooks. Everything trapper tackle right now, I hate to tell you this because I really love these hooks and I wish I could just eat them all up right now in terms of whatever stock they have left. But on Tackle Warehouse, everything trapper tackle is closeout right now. So go take a look at them if you can. If you want to, grab one or two definitely unique hooks, and I'll show you what's unique about these. They have that boxed in cut, but this bait, I'm gonna use it as a floating worm, as a cleanup bait. And a cleanup bait, I mean that more in the sense of a backup bait, as in if I get blown up on one of the other baits, the walking baits, and there's a miss, I'm gonna have this ready on the deck of the boat. So there's 3/0 trapper hook. You can see how unique they are, boxed in, just different. I don't know why there's closeout. Maybe the company might be going out, you never know. Times are rough right now, but definitely a good hook, especially once you got them boxed in. They're not coming off. That in combination with this worm, lethal, especially if you just like to use, like myself, I'm a finesse guy. I'll fish the other stuff, but if I could just go straight up with a floating worm, that's what I'm gonna do, whether it's from the bank, whether it's from a kayak, doesn't matter the situation. I'm a finesse guy. Why I went with this worm and why I had so much success, I don't know if you can see it through the camera there, but it's gonna have like these diamond triangular shaped ridges. Obviously that adds movement in the water, but the combination of that and the colors, your bait fish colors here, this is like a lavender purple color that you might see on bluegill or sunfish. I think these colors are just straight up one word: sexy. Sixth Sense does have an array of nice colors. That in combination with the ridges, I went with that worm, had decent success. So the gear to use, anywhere from 7 to about a 7.5 foot medium action, fast action rod. But if you can get a little tippy or with a mag tip, then great, because remember, there's a top water. You want to give them a second to, once they clamp down, take it down properly in their mouth. You don't want to rip it, yank it right out of their mouth. Your main line, you're going to use not necessarily high visibility. As your main line, you're going to use 20-pound braid. That allows you a little bit more room for error, especially if one jumps out pretty close to cover and jumps right back into that cover. As your leader, you're going to want to use a 10-pound monofilament because it floats. If you want to play more subsurface, then use fluorocarbon. Remember, you're going at a pretty fast pace. Even with the fluorocarbon, it's gonna float. But this is more really of a subsurface presentation anyway. If you use a pretty decently short leader, it should allow you a little room for error, especially in trying to get them out. You won't necessarily have a break off. It gives you a fighting chance. I would use a 5 to 6 speed reel in 1 to a 2K spool size on that reel. This is close quarters. You're not necessarily tossing it way out there. You can if you want to, so if that's the case, then try to stick to a little bit bigger spool size. So the when and the where. Again, I'm a finesse guy. If the bite is tough, even if the bite isn't tough, I might just lead off with that. But if the bite is tough, lead off with this fashion of top water. But I'm always gonna have that right there on the deck. Again, if I miss on a fish with one of the other top waters, then I'm gonna have that ready to toss in right then and there. Bam. Gives you a good second chance opportunity. Try to stick to your bright, your translucent, your bait fish looking colors. That's what you're going to imitate this time of the year. Again, fall feed, match the hatch. That's gonna do the deal for that 6th Sense clout worm. That's actually gonna do the deal for this What's in the Box today. This top water edition of What's in the Box. I'm super jacked up for it, man. I love top water in the fall. It's one of the most classic things you can do in bass fishing, period. As always, I'm gonna leave links in the description box down below with everything I used today. Leave a comment, man. Leave a comment, leave a like, and if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty more episodes of What's in the Box coming for you. Got a few. We're getting knee deep now into this fall feed. I hope you're having plenty of success out there. If you're using any of the baits that I'm talking about on What's in the Box and you're having success with them, man, all the better. That makes me feel great. Keep tuning in, and I'm gonna keep having more great baits out for you, more great content. But for now, I'm Miguel Malenciano. This is Evolution Angler Bassin. Catch you next time. Alright, you snake. Don't be a snake. Don't be a snake.